Hi, I'm Meta Spencer, and you're probably used to hearing my voice, but today you're going to hear a lot of other voices because we're going to have a very interesting trip to Sri Lanka. And I haven't ever been to Sri Lanka, and I'm certainly not qualified to host a very complicated conference among people in that country. So I've asked my dear friend Jill Carr Harris to be the host for this conversation. And I'm going to just sit back and listen. And she's now going to introduce people. Jill is in, did you say you're not in Kerala, you're in Tamil Nadu, in South India today.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. All right. Very good, Jill. And I'm going to turn the meeting over to you and ask you to introduce our guests. Jill Carr Harris.
Thank you so much, Meta, and greetings to friends and viewers. Today, we're going to have a conversation among very interesting people, most of whom are from Sri Lanka. The friends of Sri Lanka are also here with us. And the reason we wanted to have this particular panel discussion was we all know that Sri Lanka is the pearl of the Indian Ocean. It is a very, very special place, a beautiful place, a very historic place in the Indian Ocean off the eastern coast of India. And this beautiful country has suffered a 26-year war where there was an independence movement, a Tamil movement, and a civil war. And it ended in 2009. Many Canadians know because we have a lot of Tamil residents in Canada, a diaspora, and you may remember many of the protests that happened around 2009. And so Sri Lanka, after the war, suffered some ups and downs, but really in 2022, there was a huge fiscal problem, a huge debt problem in the country, soaring prices, to the point of scarcity of essential goods like fuel, power cuts. Inflation was at 50%. And this led to mass social unrest. And for surprisingly, so soon after a war, to have this. And 2 years down the line, after a lot of jockeying with IMF loans and so on, an election was held last November, a couple of months back, and Anura Kumara Dissanayake came in as the new president. And what was astonishing about his being elected with the National People's Power is that he came from an unconventional leftist background and had been able to build a coalition across the country. And 2/3 of Sri Lankans voted for the NPP in a very fair and free election, which today is a novelty, is more exceptional than the rule. And so we have a new government that's coming to Sri Lanka. So the question that we wanted our friends, I'm just about to introduce our friends, to think about today is what possibility is thrown up today for greater reconciliation between the majority Sinhalese and the minority Tamil communities. And to speaking to this, we have some very, very interesting people. So first off, may I introduce Taya Paran. And Taya is from the eastern part of Sri Lanka. He's a Tamil peace activist, and he was at one time early in his life in the underground violent movement, and he came overground to become a nonviolent actor, and has been working to assist Tamil communities in their development and in their peace work for many, many years. And so I want to first welcome Taya. Thank you for coming, Taya. Really wonderful to have you. We also have with us Rohan Savarmutu, who is a professor of English at the Eastern University in Trincomalee, and this is in the northern part of Sri Lanka. He's also a Tamil peace activist and spent many years as displaced from his country in India and has returned some years back to reunify himself with his country. And we're just absolutely delighted, Rohan, you have been able to join us tonight. Thank you very much. We also have Anuradha Shankar, who is a senior bureaucrat from the Indian government. But the reason she's here, not as Sri Lankan, she comes from India, is because she's had a very special relationship with Sri Lanka for many, many years. She's a Gandhian by her own heritage. Even though she was a senior police official in the government of Madhya Pradesh in India for many years. But what she has done is really made links with some of the people who are in the Interfaith Council in Sri Lanka, who are really looking to bring together Sri Lanka Sinhalese and Tamils. And so we'd like to hear, as she's just today come back from Sri Lanka, so wanted to get a snapshot from her, how she saw the situation. And of course, we have Rajagopal, a senior Gandhian, and someone who has worked even during the difficulties of the war, trying to do reconciliation between Tamils and Sinhalese. So with a long history and understanding of Sri Lanka. So what I wanted, friends, was for us just to open up, as we were briefed by Meta, into sort of a coffee conversation as to how we see Sri Lanka today and the opportunities or lack thereof of opportunities to really see more reconciliation in the country between the majority community and the minority community.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be part of this panel discussion. I will try my level best to say how things are at the moment over here. People are living with a lot of aspirations and a lot of expectation from the government because they selected the government because they think that really this government will give a very good future for them because they have been undergoing so many difficulties in the past and even not even get enough food or fuel or anything in the past. So they were in a need for changes in the governance side in Sri Lanka. Because of that only, really, in the last election, two-third majority was given to the new government. They were able to get to power and all that. So the main mandate for the election was corruption-free Sri Lanka and clean Sri Lanka and, equal opportunity for everyone and good governance. These were the really were the main propaganda during the elections and all that. But yeah, even still the government is giving priority for that because that was their mandate during the election. It was given by them to the public. But again, when we look at the history, of Sri Lanka, or what has happened in the past for last 30 years and all that. Before 2009, there was a civil war, and so many things happened in the country. So many thousands of people were killed and kidnapped and disappeared and all that. Still, there's no answer about it. But really, my concern is whether whether the government really wanted to do reconciliation work in the country, whether government wanted to give a priority for reconciliation work in the country, because their mandate is slightly different from reconciliation and peace building and all that. So they are mostly towards development and giving equal opportunities to everyone and all that. So that is really a concern, because sometimes the government thinking that really when they do these kind of a things, there won't be question about ethnic problem. There won't be a question about power sharing. There won't be a problem about self-determinations and all that. So I doubt it whether really government coming from that point of view. So that also really one concern. And because I
Taya,
could, yeah,
can I interrupt you, Taya?
yeah.
Wasn't it true, though, that the majority of Tamils voted for this government, many of whom were not traditional Tamils? Many Tamil voters voted for Sinhalese. So doesn't that indicate some hope that they would be different?
Okay. If you look at the last election, Tamils not voted for Sinhalese. They voted for Tamils who were contesting on behalf of this party. Some Sinhalese have voted for Tamil people in the south, because there were Tamils nomination were there during the election. So those people were supported by Sinhalese. But in the north and east, not Tamil supported Sinhalese. They never voted for any singular candidates or anything. They voted for the Tamil candidates who were contesting on behalf of this party.
And the
So
Tamils in Kandy were also voting for Tamils only? The Tamils
yes,
in Kandy
Tamils.
also?
No, they have voted for the Sinhalese as well. In some area,
Yeah,
in Kandy, especially in Kandy, it has happened. But
yeah,
not
yeah.
in the north
So
and east,
Rohan,
it didn't happen.
just before we come back to you there, Taya, Rohan, do you have the same view on this?
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
just
What Tayaji says is true. Even though Anura Kumara's party won in the north and east, uh, it was the Tamil candidates who stood on behalf of the AKD government. So again,
so they supported NPP.
it's yeah. So, but this is something very nice because NPP had given room for Tamil candidates to stand in Tamil provinces, but we still do not know whether they have their 100% voice or whether their voice will be heard in the parliament. Now, this is still a question that only time can solve.
Right. And how long do you think it's going to take before we see that? So in another 6 months, or what would be it?
I don't know because now the government is finding it very hard to survive because there is a dearth of rice in the country, and the economic status is really very pathetic. So now the question of survival of the government itself has come up. So we don't know what priorities are going to be taken up by the government, whether they are going to look after their own survival or they are going to do justice as they promised. But we are
Did
hoping
yeah.
that something good will happen. if they can
Yeah.
solve this food crisis.
Is it the rice grow areas in the south mostly? The rice, isn't that, or are the rice areas in the north as well?
Rice areas are there in the north,
Both,
yeah, but then due
right.
to the
So the,
mismanagement with regard to fertilizers and everything,
Mhm.
and introducing new fertilizers, a lot of diseases get spread in the past, and due to natural calamities also, farmers have had a huge loss. And another thing is that most of the rice mills are owned by people who were in the previous government. So there is also hoarding of rice so that they can topple the new
Mm.
government. That is also there. So
I-
I
whoa,
really do not know like how things are going to go about. So it's like
yeah,
a big game.
Mhm. Mhm. I
kind of
also
piece.
wanted to say one more thing, really. When there was a shortage of food and shortage of essential items, when there was a kind of situation before in 2022, same thing happened. But government, I think the government would be very careful on it and will try their level best to accommodate everyone in the country and all that. But the given situation or the present situation has given the limitation to the government to focus on these ethnic issues and the reconciliation issues because their priority is something else right now. Because peace and reconciliation, if it is need to happen, that need to be happen in two ways. One is from bottom to top and top to bottom and all that. So our focuses and then our intention, our initiatives are normally taking place from bottom to top. Really, we are working with the grassroots level people and we are working with the local level people. But actually, if it should be a meaningful process, there should be another process as well from top to bottom. But the question is whether government wanted to do it or not, whether government has the priority to do that, whether they are mandated to do that, even though there's a mechanism around that, like OMP, Office of Missing Person, Office of Reparation, Office of uh, something like that, and there is a TJ mechanisms and all that. But really, I could not see a kind of active role played by those mechanisms yet because those mechanisms are there. It's like same happened in the past as well. So really the question is whether government has the, again my question is whether government has in its mind about peace and reconciliation in the country. So that is one of my question right now, because government in any place, government didn't say anything about openly. They are ready to talk about the ethnic issue. They are ready to talk about power sharing, or they are ready to talk about minority issues and all that. They will never talk about it. Sometimes, whenever they talk little bit negatively. Some ministers from the government, they say something negatively about this ethnic issue. So that's really has created a concern among Tamil community, and especially the Tamil MPs who are part of the government, also very silent at the moment. Uh, because really, it's a question about whether they are the holding only the Tamil names or really they are Tamil MPs. Really, we don't know really. Because whether they can raise their voice against their own government. Those are the problems are here right now. So normally we say that this is a new government, we need to wait some more time, we need to give
Mhm.
some more time and all that. Really, we don't know how long we are going to give time and how long they are going to take time to see kind of a different things happening in the country.
Add what Dayaji told.
Yeah,
Our Tamil ministers are given very few minutes to talk in the parliament. They are unable to bring out their entire voice. So it's a big question on what Anurakumara Dasanayaka really wants to do, how to share power, and all those things. But then, with regard to reconciliation, even though when there is so much of challenge, I think it is this time that is the right hour
Mhm.
to start the process. Since the Sinhalese or the majority are finding it very hard to run their own show, they have to listen to the voices of the others, the voices of the international community. Now, at this juncture, we should be also very earnest to agree that out of this 30-year civil war and the final battle, so many governments, so many countries, so many arms dealers, so many arms manufacturers have had their share of profit. Therefore, I doubt in all the bodies that have been constituted, for example, in finding out missing persons, for example, I don't know whether it can function. I don't know whether the international community will be really interested for such a group to function because they might have had the share in these missing persons. Maybe, let's say, I don't know whether this really happened, let's say just because of organ trading. So, why to kill people? You trade their organs for money, for profit. Now, the entire war was done by almost in a mafia kind of a manner. So, we don't know whether the international community is really ready to turn the clock back and to point out who has done the mistake. Now, if we are going to do that, I think we will miserably fail in reconciliation. So I think we should move forward without talking about the past too
Mhm.
much, and
Let's
but that doesn't mean that we need to forget the past. But when we are going to set right the past, when we are going to tell who is wrong and how it happened and everything, even the international governments will shudder because there is so much of bad games that has been going on, big games, and money is involved. A lot of things have happened.
I think your point, Rohan, of looking forward is very, very interesting because look what's happened. The NPP have thrown out the traditional elites. This is a big deal. This is not a small deal, right? These elites were the guys that had the vested interests in the profiteering against the majority of people, which is why they protested, right? And this was maybe a carryover from the war. We can look at what the causes were, but I think what is so amazing is that you have thrown out the power elites. I mean, to do that by any government is so they have to retain power. So for them to, as you say, for them to bring the Tamils in to help them to retain power, Taya, is the smartest thing they can do because they need everybody's help to retain power against the traditional elites, right? Which is a small portion of the Sri Lankan population. Right? So it seems to me that reconciliation is a strategic move, except that they also have to keep things going in such a way that the power elites through the rice mills, through this company, that company, through their various means, do not destabilize this existing government.
The rural distress is real. It's terrible because of course, the legacy of the past governments, but more so because of natural calamities, as Rohan Bhai mentioned. So it's quite a situation. Although while I was about to leave, I heard that there was a large import of rice from India, and they were trying for some from Bangladesh also. They need red rice basically because the rural people are interested in red rice. And India, unfortunately, has reduced the production of red rice. Kerala should have compensated for that, but that's an issue. I mean, in the sense that if people don't want to have red rice, and if you supply them white rice, they still have grievances. Because I find it extremely funny and a little insensitive to judge any government. I have no access to grind with this government or any government, but to judge any government in 2 months or 3 months that they have been in power. I mean, they've just about unbuckled their boots, and they have a huge food crisis on their heads. I don't think that they are going to sit around, confabulating about how to reconcile with this or that. And they have a crisis on their heads, and I think they're handling it well, because what I could notice was that they are running from pillar to post for rice, and it's important. The other thing is that, this dissatisfaction or this eagerness, this impatience is not only in the Tamil population, it's also in the Sinhala population. They are also expecting some miracle to happen immediately. It doesn't actually, because over the last since 2009, people, the warmongers, became politicians, and they captured the power. And as Rohan Bhai very rightly pointed out, that they had many deals going on. And because of that, there was absolute lack of integrity, complete absence of integrity in governance. I mean, you can have some corruption in governance, but you can't have all corruption in governance. And it was actually completely devoid of any integrity. And that any normal, ordinary, simple Sinhala will also tell you, just like the Tamils will tell you. They couldn't get a simple car license without paying money, a simple, certificate from the school without paying money. Everything was a whole racket of corruption. Anyhow, so Bishop Kumara is working, and with the Buddhist monk at Gampola, he is working for, and it's cutting across communities. It's in Tamil households, Sinhala households. They have this home garden concept, and they started this during the COVID times, and it's really taken off. And it's the most impressive thing was how they have been able to get women to take agency, because I mean, like typical South Asian countries, think Sri Lanka, whether it's Tamil or Sinhala or whatever, is a patriarchal society, and women do not have much economic empowerment. So these kind of programs. So what I was thinking when I was talking to people and observing things and looking at the distress that is there, is that one of the first things that needs to be addressed is the rural distress. And you know very well that societies cannot actually function if there is rural distress. And that has happened we have seen many countries completely collapse because of this. In fact, Sri Lanka nearly collapsed in 20.
We are speaking about a country that have gone through many years of war, a huge tsunami, and an economic crisis. For the last 30 years, this country has really gone through something that you can't imagine. So the capacity of people to hang on to life is itself something miraculous to my mind. The way, with all the suffering, they continue to stay on with hope. So during my visit, I was very, very, very touched by the warmth of people, their capacity to deal with difficulties, the distress that Anuradha Ben is speaking about. So their capacity is really, really big. I mean, their capacity to deal with difficult time is really, really big. That is something I admire as far as Sri Lanka is concerned. So I was not very hopeful about the reconciliation process uh, during that period because it was not the same government, it was all the old government, So, but now, after the election, I have grown hopeful that probably reconciliation will be possible now, right? And so it's a challenge for all of us, not only for the Sri Lankans, but also for people, the global community, like Rohan was articulating, to see that this government will not fall. This can happen because all those who know how to run the government, all those who are powerful, economically powerful, are all against this government. They have run the government for so many years. They have the money, they have the muscle power. So they can use all that knowledge and muscle power and money power to topple this government. So one big challenge today is to see how do you keep a government going that we call through that came through a free and fair election, right? So this challenge we need to take, the international community need to take, not directly but indirectly. We have a moral responsibility to see that this change that has finally happened, that need to stay for some time. Like Anuradha Ben said, in 2 months' time, nothing is going to change. It takes time and energy. The second thing, I agree that it is going to, the priority may not be reconciliation at the moment, but then, as Rohan said, the global community will have to bring that in. We have just come out of a situation where reconciliation was not even looked into. They said, why should we look into reconciliation? Because the majority has won the war. Now the minority need to submit to the decisions of the majority. So from there to a participatory democracy that is emerging. So I think this is a very challenging time for the international community and also for the diaspora. See, diaspora need to be very active now to see that the right kind of inputs are going into Sri Lanka in terms of ideas, in terms of economy. We can't sit back and say, now look, you survive if you can survive. We need to see that we support them to survive. So it's a very challenging period, what I wanted to say.
One thing which I need to tell you is that the Buddhist Swamis are not very technically savvy. So he's been trying to read the whole email, of course, and trying to click all sorts of lines to get into the meeting. So I've told him that he has to click that blue line, which I hope he will do. He said, I'm trying that, but I'm not getting in the meeting. They're not letting me in the meeting. Anyhow, so I just wanted to add a few more words that with the background of this situation, this stressful situation in Sri Lanka, because it's mostly rural, it's not urban.
Swamiji is also there.
Swamiji is also there. Yeah.
Namaste. How are you?
Yeah, namaste. Swamiji is not well, Anuradha.
I know. Okay. Yes, I know.
I will join you next time. And all the success, all my blessings are with you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Look after yourself. Look after yourself.
Yeah. But your representative can join us, Swamiji, and speak to us. Yeah.
You can stay here. You can stay on, please. Swamiji, you rest, and Gunasekaraji will be there for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, let me introduce Hemakumara Gunashekara.
Yeah.
He is the director of the Chamber of Commerce in Sri Lanka. So we're talking a lot about the economy now. So good that you've joined. And he's also a member of Interfaith Council. So he works closely with Swami and other friends to bring the communities together. So welcome. And we've talked for quite a bit of time now about the new government being a departure from the previous government. So giving us a new lease on life, because it's a lot of fresh and new people, but wondering to what extent they can manage with all the forces that they have to face economically. And especially, we've noted the rural distress, the price of rice and so on, the need to import from India and so on. And but we've also talked about, is this an opportunity for reconciliation, more reconciliation? So this is the framing of where we are at the moment. But let me just, while you gather your thoughts, Anuradha, just complete what you wanted to say.
Yeah, so what I wanted to say is that, of course, there is a lot of lack of trust on both sides. It's not as if, you'll immediately go and hug each other and say, okay, let's be together, let's be brothers again. There's a lot of pain, there is a lot of hurt, and for various reasons, there are people who have, and as Rohan Bhai was saying, that there are people who, we have to. It's a tragic thing when we have to say that let us not sit here and think about the past and not look for those people whom we do not know where they are. These are sad times. But then, of course, we need to move ahead. And it's important that a conversation is started. And that day when we, for the little time that I spent with Rohan Bhai and Queenie, we had this important suggestion that young people should, visit the area, from one side to the other. He was a little surprised that there are very distressed villages in Singhala area also. They are actually, it can be a surprise to Tamil youth in urban centers to see how badly the, villages in near, very close to Colombo also are faring, because I have been traveling in that area also. So these kinds of exchanges of young people, because they are the people who are going to actually be the game changers. This government itself is full of young people, and so this is one thing, and there can be many other programs. What the point I want to make is that there should be the beginning of conversations, communication. Let's start talking to each other. And let us not hope for, think that some miracle is going to happen. Let us take it easy, take it step by step, and then build it upon it, because the pain has been a very long one. The hurt has been a very long one. So it'll get healed slowly. A long disease gets healed very slowly. So, and I think now, if Guneshekaraji would want to come from representing the Interfaith Coalition, he would tell you what they have been doing.
We, the Interfaith Coalition for Peace, it's an organization formed by Venerable Nayaka Thero and the Bishop of Methodist Church in Sri Lanka. They were the pioneers, and I also joined initially. And Thero is the chairperson of this particular organization, and the Bishop plays a role as a Secretary General, and I am the treasurer. And there are some Muslim and Hindu religious leaders. And what we have done so far is, now we, as you know, that there were some conflicts in the country, and we had several unwanted conflicts in between two races and a lot of things. But anyway, that was ended in 2009. So from 2010, we started the healing projects, and especially in northern and eastern area, we did a lot of community service projects to upgrade their livelihood, and in the education field and in the industry, etc. A lot of things we did. So, and in that case, for all these projects, we get the support from the Tamil community, Muslim community, Hindu community, and Sinhala, Christian, Catholic, all communities. So we joined together, and we actually introduced a lot of things to this northern and eastern area. We started projects in Jaffna University. That was initially, actually, that was called the Passport to Employment. That was conducted for the youth, to train them to face the challenges in the private sector organizations, because most of the organizations those days, they did not recruit these people. So we trained them how to face these interviews, how to pass these their tests and assessments, etc. In addition, we trained youth especially the young female in Kilinochchi, Mulattiu, Batiklo, etc., for early childhood education. So we trained teachers, we brought them to Colombo, and we provided accommodation and everything. And they stayed here for 3 months, 2 months time, short period training. And we went there again and we trained for advanced training we did. And they were actually superbly trained for the nursery education, the early childhood education. In addition, we trained the youth in Kokkadichole, then the what you call the Karnatakeni, Kokilai, Mulitiu area in different industries. For an example, the batik industry we introduced there. Then the agriculture sector, then the what do you call the livestock, lot of things we did. So in addition, we established several nursery Montessori centers, and we provided everything, not only the training, but also the uniforms, books, and the apparatus, everything. So likewise, we continue these services from 2010. And in the recent past, we had another special project for the ex-militants of LTTE. With the help of several organizations, we conducted several rehabilitation projects in Batikolo area, especially. Even in Kilinochchi and Mulitti, we conducted 2-3 these things. And once we brought 500 youth from northern area and another 500 youth selected from Colombo area, this area, and mingled them, and they stayed 1 week in Colombo. So what we wanted to do is to have some faith among these communities. Actually, the results are so good, and once a boy came from northern area, got married to a girl from Colombo. So ultimately, super marriage. A Sinhala girl from and a Tamil boy from two ends, northern and southern provinces, two ends got together. So those are the things what we do. Not only that, even we distribute a lot of actually the dry rations and the clothes and the garments and lot of things for the poor community in those areas. Those are the things what we have been doing so far.
Thank you so much. That's an incredible presentation you've made. What I think might be useful for the Shekharji is just to have Taya and Rohan give a response, because we want to build dialogue in this and conversation meeting.
Now,
and so, Rohan, do you want to begin?
Yeah, like Gunashekhara ji has said what they did in the past. But then when I landed in Karachi in the year 2017, the local population, they are not worried about all these things. They are not worried about, even today, the normal man on the road is not worried about all what we are talking about. They are just worried about their hand-to-mouth existence, and they don't even think about their rights. It is only the elite Tamil politicians or people who are trying to make their livelihood through all these things. They are the ones who are who are doing this propaganda of rights and everything. But the normal masses, they are not worried. Even when Rajaji came to Jaffna University, we had a meeting, a closed room, a closed curtain meeting, and we found out that these leaders were without the backing of the common man. Now, this is the same instance that made these common people to vote for NPP this time. They were not satisfied with the Tamil politicians, with the traditional Tamil parties. So,
True.
so the problem is not only rights, but more than rights, it's the question of survival. So, if we can really work things out, and if the government really can, or we can help the government to frame a mechanism, I think this is a right time where step by step issues can be solved. For example, I would suggest the government can start by announcing a kind of a tax relaxation for the families or people who have been victims in the war. The government can announce a relaxation in electricity bills for people who are victims in the war. Now, if this is done, I think this is a very, very easy step for the government, but this is a big step. This is a big step in providing a kind of, you know, bending towards the victims. And this gesture will really speak so loud.
These relaxations or the concessions cannot be given at this moment because they are working according to the rules of the IMF. They can't just go out of that. IMF has restricted all these concessions, so the government cannot go out of these things. It
So,
takes some time, but we can propose at
yeah,
least for the next.
I'm not talking about an immediate thing,
Yeah,
but at
yeah,
least the government can think and they can plan,
yeah.
and we are only talking about the victims, the
No,
families
you
of
know,
not like
no,
people like me.
exactly. As you mentioned actual truth because no politician, especially the northern political leaders, they always took rights of all these people, were taken rights, and they cheated. And they did everything for them, and what they wanted is to be in power by hook or by crook. They did it. And that those were the actually the reasons or the root cause for these problems and the conflicts. Those politicians and the politician from this side, all politicians. I can't place trust on any government. They do what they
Yeah.
want. But we should not give this up. We have to press these people and put some pressure on them. Do this thing. I think mainly what we have to do is to change the attitude of our people. That is the main problem here. Everybody thinks about themselves, not the country. They never think about the other person, the neighbor. No, they just work for themselves. That's the main reason.
One area is to help them fight poverty. Every government can do. They may not be able to give concessions at this moment, but then a clear understanding that people have suffered war for so many years and they have lost everything. And there should be special efforts to make them stand on their own. And that's a commitment that the new government will have to make. I mean, how they articulate that in action may take time, but then that commitment should be seen. Second thing is, issues are emotional. You know, there is a war memorial in very near Kalanochi. No, it is near Jaffna, and it is good that so many people lost their wars. So there is a war memorial for the Sinhala military people who lost their life, and the people, the LTT people. I mean, don't call them LTT. The people who took, uh, by understanding or without understanding, people who took to violence, they also lost a lot of life. And they want to create a memorial. And I visited some of those memorials, which the military will not allow that to come up. I mean, I'm not in support of any memorial for war, of course, but then I think it's emotional. It is just emotional that we also lost so much life, and we want to have a memorial for our people who lost life. And the person, the priest who initiated something like that, was forced to go out of the country. He can't come back. So I think there are emotional, like you said, this wound, very deep wound, need to be taken care of. For the old government, it was very difficult to allow this to happen, because it is during their regime they were able to defeat and kill so many people. But for the new government, all are equal. It's like it's our state, our country, and many people suffered this side and that side. So I think this emotional part, emotional healing, is something which can be initiated. How do we do it is different from place to place. But I think an agreement from the side of the government that there are economic healings that are to be done, emotional healings that are to be done, and we need to work towards it by consulting and taking the Tamils into confidence will be a very, very interesting move, according to me.
The government has, or the government or the army, they have war memorials that are really threatening the Tamils. Now, for the first step, such war memorials can be removed and they can have memorials like the World War II memorials, where you have the tombstone for each member and it is maintained. It doesn't, frighten you. But, when I took you to Mullaitivu, to all the war memorials and everything, it's like, it's so frightening. You have the guns, you have everything. They even still exhibit the tanks and all the war machineries. Now, this psychological warfare needs to be stopped. So I think even the war memorials of the government needs to have a change. They should stick on to the standard World War II memorials, not by putting up statues of army walas on all the streets with their guns and all their military dresses and uniforms. Even in most of the single areas, you find a statue for an army fellow. Now, what are we trying to say? What are we trying to build up? Are we trying to build up a Rambo culture for the future? So I believe, like, Tamils also can have war memorials. Sinhalese also can have war memorials, not war memorials. These are tombstones in memory of the dead. And if we can follow a protocol to have it on a standard basis like the World War II memorials, I think then it will be fine. Rather than each segment trying to display their power as a cultural hegemony in creating architectures or
That's a very
architectural shapes.
good example from the history of Sri Lanka. I think everybody knows about the battle between Dutugamunu and Elara, the Tamil king and Sinhala king. So after the death of Elara, what did Dutugamunu do? He constructed a memorial of Elara and ordered every citizen of the country, when they pass this memorial, stand up if you are sitting there and worship it. So that was the order from King Dutugamunu. So that principle should be continued, I think. But it's a different. There can be differences between that war and this ethnic problem. The peace. We don't need the war again.
Whether this can be carried out by normal people, this kind of an actions. Whether civil society organization or any other CBOs can carry out this kind of a thing. Because government priority is something different, as I said earlier. Now, there's a law has been passed, is really all NGOs, INGOs and CBOs should register under the government structure. They have created a national secretariat for non-governmental organization. Everyone should register under that. So there are restrictions going on. I'm not criticizing, but the early government also was doing that. But really what I wanted to say is, in order to happen all those things, there should be space for that. So the space is going to be given by whom? That's a big question for me. Who is giving the space to practice those healings and healing memories and healing economy and healing whatever it is need to be done. But there should be space for that. The space should be created. Really, I would like to say created by the government. Unless there's a space, no one will come together to talk about it. So only what would happen is we will talk individually or two, three people together and we will do whatever we can. So that's all will happen. So this should be a kind of a parallel process, need to be happening everywhere. So the government need to think about it, how to create that space for the civil societies to come together and talk about it.
Follows now. No government will do those things. What he mentioned. The thing is now, and this registration of the NGOs, it's a result of the bad behavior of the NGOs and other civil organizations. They put the board in front, this NGO, that NGO, behind that they played a different role. That was the result. That is why they wanted to regulate this thing. Everybody those days asked the government, control these NGOs, control these organizations. That is the problem. Again, we as community members did all these things. Then finally we put the blame on government. Actually, government also, they have missed some parts. But we as the citizen first take the right step. We must take the right step. So that is why I asked, the government, the non-government organizations can do something. I mean, we can change the attitudes, we can preach them, we can tell them how to do. Actually, we have done a lot of things. Now, the followers are there. Now, it takes some time. But as he mentioned, no government will involve this thing. That's a very unfortunate thing in this country. Power hunger.
We are speaking about a new situation. What you just said is about the old situation where the government had so much fear about voluntary sector, NGOs, etc. So they were putting restrictions on them. Now, after free and fair election, there is a new situation in the country. And in this free and fair election, I'm sure the NGOs also participated in a big way. I mean, this can happen in India, this can happen in Sri Lanka, that NGOs who are sick and tired of the old system must have played a beautiful role in terms of bringing about change in the system. Now, this is also for the government to recognize that and give them space to act, take them into confidence, give them space, say that, look, we will do whatever we can do, but you do some role, you act in terms of bringing about reduction in poverty and reduction in conflict. So this is something a new government will have to initiate. So rather than saying that the same old pattern will be applied now, we need to create a new pattern of relationship between NGOs and government.
Yeah. If the new government follow these things, all right. But I feel that they are going in the same old track. No change. Same thing. Same people from the same community. That's all. That's the main problem. So we have to find.
So I also would like to say something about it, the involvement of some voluntary organization from outside and inside the country. Because the government openly requests diasporas to come to the country and contribute to the development of the country and all that. So when diasporas come to the country, they may come through the system or they may come through organizations, whoever they were part of it in the past, or really something they may create a new things and all that. So if we are requesting the government, if we are requesting the diaspora's community to bring some wealthy and economic strength to the government, we need to create a space for that. There should be a trust in between the government and the whoever coming, bringing resources to the country. There should be a kind of an agreement and understanding and trust on each other. So what we are doing right now is still we are our thinking is sometimes I don't know really, because one of the problem the government facing is, even though government wanted to do something good thing to the people, but the challenge what the government is facing is the government couldn't change the attitudes of the previous officers who were there in the power. Still, the officers who are in power didn't want to allow the government to do the changes. So that also really we need to think about it, because government wanted to do many changes, but government could not do it, because still the same officers sitting in the same chair and wanted to do what they want. So but only asking people to bring resources is not going to resolve the problem. So there should be a process for that. CBOs and civil activists and right activists are interrogated really by the intelligence of the government anyway. So are we going to say that really any government come, this will happen, the same thing will happen and all? Are we going to justify that really? You know, if a person, for me, it's happened to me, because they have question about me in different places, what I am doing and all that. So really my question is, if we really wanted to see a changes in the country, or if we wanted to really bring changes in the country, there should be a trust.
The term government is, you use the term government to refer the politicians in the parliament, provincial council and the local government authorities. But it is not the government. Now, the people, the only 9,000 individuals in parliament, provincial council and all the local authorities, Pradesh Sabhas, municipal councils, etc. But 1.5 million government servants, 9,000 political people, 1.5 government servants. Now you are talking about the government servants. So how can they? That is why I always mention everywhere, we can't put the blame on these 9,000 people. 1.5, around 1 more than that earlier, government servants, they play a big role in this. When we are talking about the corruption, not only these 225 in the parliament or the other provincial councils, etc., but the government servants are really corrupted. As you mentioned, they don't these rulers to implement these projects. So what they want, they restrict it. Anyhow, they do this thing. That is true. So that is why I mentioned we have to change the attitude of our people, community members, the government, including the government servants.
Change is slowly beginning to happen in the northern part of Sri Lanka, where now the government servants are trying to be really very careful, because a lot of people have started asking questions, including MPs.
But
the thing is, it will
I'll
take
tell
time. It will take time.
But
And remember, I'm also a government servant, and let me tell you, no one wants to change, because all these years the government servants were living without working. They
yes,
did little work and they got a fat salary and they were enjoying. Now suddenly you want them to work. Now that's a big headache for them. So I think it'll take time. Or you need to have some strong leader who can sack all the government servants in one day and appoint new
that's
one, like the former chief minister of Tamil Nadu.
a dictatorship, a democratic dictator is wanted.
The Sinhala people, especially some of them who have enough traction in the society and government, think like you. I mean, they have the same dissatisfaction with the government, politicians, and all that. What I want to tell you, as not only a former bureaucrat but also as a Gandhian activist, that this whole idea of looking at the government for everything is a very fraught idea, because honestly, I mean, Rajaji has proved in India how the people at the people's power can bring change. I'm sure that it is needed. I mean, we have been witness to the struggles of our civil society organizations in India, where there's immense control over NGOs and civil society organizations, and all governments do that. If you imagine ever that the government is going to let you function as a civil society organization, there is no such government anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world, you are as you have registration. If you don't, and if you think that intelligence officers listen to anybody, intelligence has its own little demonic life. It follows you, tries to understand you, and it tries to stop you when it wants to stop you. It is an apparatus which functions whatever government there is. So there is, if you think that if the government says that you stop looking at him, they won't look at you, they will look at you still. They might not just come and interrogate you, but they will still be looking at you and following you. So these are little things when you are in public life and you are doing public service. There are little things which you should be conscious of, that these are going to happen. In this discussion, I was hoping that we should see how we can join hands and start doing things. And let me promise you that of course there'll be policy changes, and as I can tell you from what I saw in Sri Lanka, and what Rohan Bhai said very clearly, that hungry people are not going to look at big policy changes at this point of time. The most important thing is food security right now in Sri Lanka, and I can understand that the government wants to do that. I can also understand that the post-colonial bureaucracy, which we have all inherited, is right there. It's not changing. It is not going away. And the governments don't know how to deal with them. These are very new, young people with not much. Tilina ji could not join today because yesterday he had kept some time for us. But I'm sure, he's an MP. He has a million things to do. But his youth and his understanding of his innocence in understanding political games surprised me so much, I cannot tell you. Yes, when I met him on the 4th at Anuradhapura, because he was so innocent, because he doesn't know really what games the bureaucracy is trying to play with politicians. So they are new people, they are young people, they are not very experienced people. So we can't really expect too much from them too soon. I'm sure they are going to grow into the system of governance, and we will be able to, if we can find bridges to build with them, we will be able to request them to spearhead the reconciliation process. In the meanwhile, are we going to sit quietly in our places? You just heard what, in their own simple way, the Interfaith Coalition is trying to do. Can people join hands? Can we do something like that? And when we start, even if you think that, the very Christian way of approaching problems is charity or assistance, help. Even the Buddhist way is like that. So even if they are doing that, if we could just join hands and have some conversations around that, meet people, talk to people, link up with people, I think a people-to-people movement even in a very small micro way can be started. And if this is started, and if we make linkages and parallelly, I'm not saying that you just do that, simultaneously and parallelly try to find inroads into the government, to find sympathetic MPs, people who can just go and see what changes can be suggested. If we can do that, then we have a program. And if we have a program, we can work towards it. And this is a program which everyone can get together at. So we have, the Interfaith Coalition here. We have Dayaji's organization. We have Rohan Bhai's organization, and we can all get together. And we have even Sarvodaya, whatever their problems might be, but still they have workers all over. And if we can just initiate a change, train them, and tell them the wherewithal of how to go about these things, we can actually start a movement of change.
We had lot of negative experience with the past government and all that. So we have the kind of a responsibility to keep the government, to support the government to go on. And
Thank you. Thank you. We only have 1 minute left. Rohan, anything
okay.
you want to
I
just
would
give us?
suggest that if the international community can really fund projects such as where school children from the singular area could come for a week and live in the Tamil villages, in their homes or in a public place, and do Shramadana, do whatever they can to improve the village. It's almost like the NSS work in India. If something like that could be done in a very solid manner, I think then the differences will slowly evaporate. That's what I was talking to Anuradha ji the other day. So this is a
Good.
very humble start.
Thank you. Thank you, Rohan. Gunashekaran, do you want to just say any one thing that you think needs to be emphasized going forward?
Yes, I I accept this Dr. Rohan's proposal. It's a very good one, and we experience the results of that, and we can do that. On the other hand, as an organization, what do you call the Interfaith Coalition for Peace, ICP, is willing to join you in this venture. And personally, I'm really interested and will be involved in all your endeavors in the future. Yes.
Yeah. Rajajit, one sentence about going forward.
Well, I think Sri Lankan diaspora is very well settled in different parts of the world, and they have a big role in terms of strengthening the economy of Sri Lanka and also in the reconciliation process. That's it.
Thank you very much. I want to again express my deepest thanks for giving your time and giving us so many ideas and suggestions for moving forward at this most important historical moment in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much. Jai Jagat.
Jai
Jai
Jagat.
Jagat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Especially, I thank Anuradha.